I died and woke up in a novel. Specifically, I woke up as the rich, useless side character whose only purpose was to make the hero look good. And the story started with my fiancée, the Ice Queen CEO, dumping me in public. She looked at me with pure disgust. "You're a lost cause, a complete screw-up." I nodded. "You're right." Then, I turned around and began my new life of doing absolutely nothing. The weird thing was, the more I slacked off, the harder everyone who worked for me seemed to grind. Weirder still, the angelic girl who was supposed to fall for the novel's actual hero, she was suddenly following me around, trying to get her hands on my abs. "Leo, let's call off the engagement." Catherine Pierce's voice was as cold and sharp as she was. I just opened my eyes, my head pounding like I'd been on a week-long bender, to see a face that was objectively stunning. Perfect features, flawless skin, except for the undisguised contempt burning in her beautiful eyes. A bomb went off in my brain, flooding it with memories that weren't mine. Me, Leo Vance, a corporate drone who'd worked himself to death at his desk. And then this. I was inside the last thing I'd read before my heart gave out. One of those power fantasy novels for guys. The woman in front of me was a supporting character, my ex-fiancée, the notoriously cold CEO of Pierce Industries, Catherine Pierce. And I was the cliché rich kid, the guy with nothing but money and a handsome face, designed to be the hero's punching bag. According to the original script, this was my cue to grovel, to beg her not to leave me, only to be brutally humiliated by her and the novel's hero when he inevitably showed up. I was supposed to become the laughingstock of our entire social circle. "You're not worthy of me, and you're certainly not worthy of the Vance family fortune." Seeing my silence, the disdain in her eyes deepened. "You're a lost cause, a useless playboy who knows nothing but wasting money." I rubbed my throbbing temples and sat up straight on a massive sofa. "Okay, wait, what?" The string of insults Catherine had clearly prepared got stuck in her throat. Her perfect eyebrows knitted together as she stared at me, searching my face for any sign of grief or anger or desperation. There was nothing. I was just thirsty. "Are you done?" I asked, my eyes scanning the coffee table for a glass of water. Catherine's chest heaved. My casual dismissal was obviously getting to her. "Leo, what is this attitude? I'm breaking our engagement," she snapped, her voice high and tight like a cornered cat. "I heard you," I said, nodding seriously. "You said I'm a useless screw-up who isn't worthy of you." "You're right." She was completely speechless. She had probably rehearsed 100 different ways to shut down my pathetic begging, but she'd never considered the possibility that I would just agree with her. It was like she'd swung a sledgehammer and hit a pillow. You really agree?" she asked, a note of disbelief in her voice. 100%. I stood up and stretched, my joints popping in a satisfying cascade. This body was actually in great shape. 6'2", with the faint outline of a six-pack and abs that years of personal training had maintained. Too bad the original owner was an idiot who only used it to chase skirts. But now it was mine. And since I'd been reborn as a trust fund kid who didn't even have to worry about running the family business, I'd be betraying my past, overworked self if I didn't just kick back and enjoy the ride. "I'll have my lawyer draft the dissolution agreement and send it over. For now on, we'll go our separate ways," Catherine said, finally seeming to accept the new reality. She slipped back into her Ice Queen persona, a hint of relief in her voice. "Great." I waved a hand at her dismissively, like I was shooing a fly. "See yourself out." Her face flushed, a mix of red and white. She spun on her heel and stalked out, slamming the door with a force that shook the penthouse walls, a clear sign of her barely contained fury. Finally, some peace and quiet. I collapsed back onto the plush sofa, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number. "Mark, it's me." A respectful, steady voice came from the other end. "Mr. Vance, how can I help you?" "Mark Chun, my chief of staff in name. In reality, he was the guy my grandfather hired to clean up my messes. In the book, he was a business prodigy of staggering talent, who, after wasting years on me, was eventually won over by the hero and became his greatest asset. But now he was mine. That downtown development plot, and those few semiconductor projects we were looking at. "You handle them," I said with a lazy yawn. "Handle them, sir?" Mark asked, clearly confused. "Yeah, don't bother me with the details. Just make your own calls. The goal? Well, just don't lose money. That's it. My plan was simple: be the ultimate hands-off boss. Let my brilliant subordinate do all the work while I focused on the big picture, which was, of course, making my own life as comfortable as possible. But, sir, these projects are... That's the deal. I'm off to enjoy my life. Don't disturb me. I hung up, ignoring the sound of Mark's sputtering, unfinished sentence. You have got to be kidding me. I spent my last life grinding myself into an early grave. This time around, anyone who wants to climb the ladder is welcome to it. I, Leo Vance, am officially retired. After hanging up on Mark, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Nothing was more important than enjoying life. First things first, I needed to whip this body, softened by booze and late nights, back into shape. I changed into workout clothes, grabbed the keys to the most understated car in the garage, a Porsche, and headed for the city's most exclusive private gym. The membership was a who's who of New York's elite, and the privacy was exactly what I needed. Stepping into the weight room, the familiar, testosterone-fueled air hit me. I took a deep breath. It felt like the fitness-obsessed guy I used to be was finally waking up. Warm-up, pull-ups, bench press. Sweat dripped from my jaw onto my chest, and the satisfying pump in my muscles felt incredible. This was living. Just as I was sinking into the blissful pain of muscle failure, a bright, cheerful voice piped up beside me. "Excuse me, sir, could you help me with something?" I turned my head and saw a girl in a pink sports bra and leggings. She had her hair up in a high ponytail, her skin was practically glowing, and her eyes sparkled like a clear stream. When she smiled, 2 perfect dimples appeared on her cheeks. It was her, the novel's true female lead, Chloe Sullivan. A girl whose family was even more powerful than Catherine's, but who was as kind and innocent as an angel. In the story, she was supposed to meet the hero at a banquet and fall for him at first sight after he outsmarted some villain. But right now, she was blinking up at me, looking completely helpless. "This machine, I don't think I'm using it right," she said, pointing to the lap pull-down machine and sticking her tongue out in embarrassment. I stood up, my sweat-soaked tank top clinging to the lines of my chest and abs. I saw her eyes linger on my torso for a split second before she quickly looked away, the tips of her ears turning a telltale shade of pink. "The weight's too heavy for you," I said, walking over and easily adjusting the pin with one hand, setting it to a much lighter resistance. "Oh, thank you so much," she said, her voice impossibly sweet. "No problem," I replied coolly, ready to get back to my workout. She started again, her voice barely a whisper. "You're in really good shape. Yo, physique. It's amazing." I raised an eyebrow and turned to look at her. The girl's face was now bright red, like a ripe apple you just wanted to take a bite out of. "Want some pointers?" I asked. She nodded enthusiastically, like a bobblehead. I smirked. This girl was way more interesting than the book made her out to be. "All right." I moved behind her, my hands naturally settling on her shoulders to adjust her posture. Back straight, shoulders down, and focus on squeezing your lats. Through the thin fabric of her top, I could feel the warmth and smoothness of her skin. Her body went rigid for a second, and I felt her breath catch. I caught a faint, sweet scent, something like gardenias and milk. It was intoxicating. A part of my body responded with predictable honesty. I subtly took half a step back, creating a little space between us. "Try it yourself." "Okay," she stammered, her voice shaky. Watching her struggle, her determination written all over her face, I had a sudden thought. This slacker life might be even better than I'd imagined. At the very least, the view was spectacular. For the next half hour, I was Chloe Sullivan's personal trainer. She looked delicate, but her willpower was incredible. Even when her arms were trembling with exhaustion, she gritted her teeth and finished every set I gave her. When we were done, she collapsed onto a bench, her face flushed and her forehead beaded with sweat. "I'm so exhausted," she panted, but her eyes were shining. "Not bad for your first time," I said, handing her a bottle of water. "Thank you, coach," she chirped, taking the bottle and tilting her head back. A single drop of water escaped and traced a line down her elegant neck, disappearing into her collar. I swallowed hard. "Not a coach," I corrected. "I'm Leo." "I'm Chloe," she said, her smile making her eyes curve into crescents. "Can I call you Leo from now on?" Sure. Leo, your abs, she said, her eyes fixed on my stomach with a look of pure, unadulterated curiosity. Can I touch them? Just for a second. I froze. This girl had some serious nerve. But looking into those wide, hopeful eyes, I found I couldn't say no. Ahem. I cleared my throat, giving my silent consent. The next thing I knew, a pair of soft, warm hands were on my stomach. Through the thin fabric of my shirt, I could feel the heat from her fingertips. Whoa, she breathed, her fingers mischievously tracing the lines between my abs. They're so hard, like a washboard. My entire body tensed as a jolt of heat shot straight through me. This little minx was definitely doing that on purpose. Had enough? I asked, my voice coming out a little rough. Yep, all good. Chloe snatched her hands back like she'd been electrocuted, her face turning crimson. Thanks, Leo. I'm gonna go shower now. And with that, she practically fled. I watched her go, a helpless smile spreading across my face. That girl was like a walking ray of sunshine. Back home, I just stepped out of the shower when my phone rang. It was Mark. He sounded unusually excited, his voice practically trembling. Mr. Vance. Sir, we did it. Did what? I asked, dry my hair, completely baffled. The downtown development plot. We got it. And it was 30% under our projected budget. Mark's voice cracked with excitement. And that semiconductor project you mentioned? The other party was about to sign with Pierce Industries, but when they heard you were personally involved, they contacted us this morning. They offered to give us a 5-point profit margin just for the chance to work with us. I paused. Seriously? All I did was tell them not to lose money. How did they manage to pull all this off? Oh, good to know, I said flatly. Sir, aren't you excited? Mark asked cautiously, clearly stunned by my lack of reaction. We snatched this right out from under Catherine Pierce. The whole industry is buzzing. Everyone's saying you were just playing dumb all along, that you're a sleeping giant who's finally woken up. I could just picture Mark and his team, fueled by my supposed trust and empowerment, turning into a pack of wolves, working themselves to the bone. It's no big deal. Nothing to get worked up about, I said with a yawn. From now on, you don't need to report this stuff to me. Just handle it. Remember, my only goal is to chill. Igriegagis, Mr. Vance. Mark's voice was now filled with something approaching worship. Understand, you're hiding your genius in simplicity, achieving the greatest results with the least effort. We won't let you down, sir. We'll clear every obstacle from your path. Dude, you're overthinking it. I'm just lazy, but seeing my team so fired up, it wasn't so bad. Winning without even trying felt pretty damn good. News about the downtown plot and the semiconductor deal spread like wildfire through New York's business circles. Overnight, my reputation as a lost cause started to shift in some strange, unexpected ways. Of course, most people were still skeptical. They prefer to believe it was my family pulling strings or the work of my brilliant chief of staff, Mark Shun. I was at best a figurehead who got lucky. I couldn't have cared less. What they thought was their problem, not mine. I was busy with my new hobby, brewing, whiskey, gin, even craft beer. Watching grains and botanicals slowly transform into aromatic spirits under the magic of fermentation was strangely therapeutic. I'd even converted the massive basement, originally designed for lavish parties, into a temperature-controlled distillery and cellar. One afternoon, while I was checking on a new batch of aged whiskey, my phone rang. It was Chloe. Leo, are you busy? The girl's voice sounded like wind chimes. Not all. Just playing with some barrels, I said with a smile. Barrels? She was clearly confused. Yeah, distilling. Whoa, you know how to do that? That's so cool. I could hear the pure admiration in her voice. That kind of unfiltered praise was a serious mood booster. Want to come try some? I asked, feeling generous. Yes. Can I come over now? She replied without a moment's hesitation. Half an hour later, Chloe was at my door. She was wearing a simple white sundress, her long hair flowing over her shoulders. She looked like an ethereal fairy who had wandered into the mortal world. I led her to my kitchen. It was a massive, open-plan space with every gadget imaginable, especially the section dedicated to high-end cooking, from a 6-burner Wolf range to a full set of copper pans. This place, it's like a food museum, Chloe said, looking around with wide-eyed curiosity. I like to cook, I said, pulling some fresh ingredients from the Sub-Zero fridge. You cook too? Her eyes got even wider, filled with disbelief. In her world, guys who knew their way around a kitchen were probably rarer than unicorns. What are you in a mood for? I asked, tying on an apron. I'll eat anything, she said, hopping onto a bar stool. She swung her feet back and forth like a little kid waiting to be fed. I looked at her and remembered that in the book, she was the type who'd been coddled her whole life, never having to lift a finger. All right, a few of my favorites it is. Slicing, searing, the flames leaping from the pan. My movements were fluid and practiced. In about 20 minutes, a 4-course meal was on the table. Pan-seared scallops, a perfectly cooked medium-rare ribeye, truffle mac and cheese, and a simple but elegant roasted beet salad. The rich aromas filled the entire dining room. Chloe's eyes were practically dinner plates themselves. She carefully speared a scallop, glistening with butter, and put it in her mouth. Her eyes instantly squeezed shut in pure bliss. This is amazing, she mumbled. Leo, you're some kind of god. Watching her, my own heart felt like it was melting. Slow down, there's plenty more. I poured her a glass of chilled Chardonnay I'd picked up from the cellar, its crisp notes of apple and oak a perfect complement to the rich food. This is so good, she said after a sip, her eyes curving into happy crescents. By the end of the meal, her stomach was adorably full. She propped her chin on her hands and gazed at me with a look of pure contentment. Leo, I feel like I'm in a dream. You're not like any of the guys I know. How so? All they ever talk about is money and deals. But you know how to live. You enjoy life. You cook these incredible meals. You make your own amazing whiskey. Her big eyes were shining with adoration. You're like a hidden master living right here in the city. The most intoxicating words in the world are the ones spoken by the person you're starting to fall for. I smiled. You're giving me too much credit. I'm just a guy trying to take it easy. Meanwhile, in the top-floor office of Pierce Industries, Catherine Pierce angrily threw down a financial report. On her monitor was an in-depth analysis of the Vance Corporation's recent acquisitions. The article hinted that a mysterious mastermind was behind the strategic coup, and that this mastermind was likely the Vance family heir everyone had underestimated, Leo Vance. Impossible. Catherine let out a cold laugh, her manicured nails tapping restlessly on the polished desk. She knew Leo better than anyone. He was an airhead, a buffoon who thought about nothing beyond his next party. This had to be Mark Chen's work. Leo just got lucky and signed the papers. Useless, she muttered. She reached for her coffee, forgetting it had long gone cold. The icy liquid hit the back of her throat, making her shudder. Damn it! She slammed the mug down, splashing cold coffee across an important contract. Ugh! Catherine scrambled for a napkin, but she only smeared the ink, turning the document into a mess. For the first time in a long time, the famously composed and efficient CEO was a complete wreck. Frustrated, she ran a hand through her hair, then yanked open a drawer and pulled out a pink, rabbit-shaped cookie tin from the very back. It was her biggest secret. The ruthless ice queen of the business world was, in private, a hopeless chocoholic. She picked up a bear-shaped macaroon and popped it in her mouth. The sugary sweetness melted on her tongue, slightly calming her frayed nerves. Leaning back in her chair, her mind involuntarily conjured Leo's face. The face that had shown no emotion, not even a flicker of regret, when she'd told him it was over. Why? Why didn't he fight for her? Why wasn't he angry? Or sad? Was she really that insignificant to him? The thought was a thorn that dug deep in her heart. She had always believed that she was the one looking down on him, that she was the one who had dumped him. But now, for the first time, she felt a strange, unsettling feeling. It felt like she was the one who had been thrown away. Ping! Her phone lit up with a news alert. Mystery Tycoon spares no expense on lavish private distillery. A grand gesture for a new love. She clicked the link. It was a series of paparazzi photos. The setting was the entrance to Leo's penthouse. A white Maserati was parked out front, and a girl who looked like a fairy stepped out of the car. It was Chloe Sullivan. The photos were blurry, but Chloe's radiant, unrestrained smile was perfectly clear. And Leo, who stood at the door to greet her, was only visible in profile, but the strong line of his shoulders and the hint of a smile on his lips radiated a warmth she had never, ever seen from him. A gentle warmth. Catherine's pupils contracted. She had never seen that expression on Leo's face. With her, he had only ever been fawning, obedient, and a little afraid. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, sending sharp, stabbing pains through her chest that made it hard to breathe. She didn't recognize the feeling, but its name was jealousy. I knew nothing of the drama brewing outside my little bubble, nor did I care to. My life had settled into a simple rhythm. Work out, brew, cook, and occasionally tease a certain young woman named Chloe Sullivan. Ever since that first meal at my place, she had become a regular. The official reason was to learn how to cook. In reality, I did all the cooking while she sat at the kitchen island, chin in her hands, watching me and outputting a steady stream of insane compliments. Leo, you look so hot when you flip things in a pan. Leo, even the way you chop onions is like poetic. Leo, you smell so good. That last one came as she leaned in close, sniffing my shirt like a curious puppy. That's the food, I said, trying to sound patient. No, it's you, she insisted, then blushed and added in a whisper, it's a really good smell. I couldn't very well tell her it was the sin of my pheromones going into overdrive whenever she got close. I just rolled my eyes, dipped a chopstick in sauce, and booped her on the nose. Go wash up, you. Dinner's ready. Captain, she chirped, skipping away with a laugh that sounded like silver bells. Watching her, my own mood brightened. I had to admit, having a beautiful, sweet-talking girl around made the slacker life infinitely better. We were in the middle of dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number. I put on speaker. Am I speaking with Mr. Leo Vance? A polite male voice asked. This is he. Mr. Vance, hello. I'm with the Starlight Charity Gala, and we would be honored if you would attend our event this Saturday evening. The Starlight Charity Gala? I frowned, searching my new memories. Oh, right. A major plot point from the novel. At this gala, the hero, Ethan Cole, was supposed to expose a charity fraud, making a huge splash and catching the eye of the heroine, Chloe. Meanwhile, I, the useless side character, was supposed to get into a bidding war over an antique, make a fool of myself, and get publicly humiliated by some tycoon. Not interested, I said flatly. No way. I was supposed to be avoiding these plot points, not walking right into them. Mr. Vance, we'll have distinguished guests from all sectors, including Ms. Catherine Pierce of Pierce Industries and the Sullivan family. I said I'm not interested. I cut him off. But, Leo, please go. Before I could say another word, Chloe, sitting across from me, clasped her hands together and looked at me with puppy dog eyes. You're going? I asked, surprised. I have to. My dad is one of the sponsors, she said, blinking her big, pleading eyes. But those things are so boring, just a bunch of old guys talking. If you go, I'll have someone to hang out with. I looked at that face, practically screaming, pretty please, and the no on the tip of my tongue just dissolved. Making an exception for her didn't seem so bad. Fiend, he sighed. Yay, awesome. She practically bounced in her chair. The organizer on the phone sounded immensely relieved. That's wonderful, Mr. Vance. We'll see you on Saturday evening. After I hung up, I looked at Chloe's triumphant little smirk and shook my head. Stay close to me that night, I warned. Why? Because I'm pretty sure you're the type to get scammed and then help the scammer count your money. No way, she said, puffing out her chest. With you there, who would dare try to scam me? I just smiled. Little did she know, the biggest scammer in her life was sitting right across from her. Still, if I was going to go, I need to make a few arrangements. I had no intention of being a stepping stone for the hero this time around. Saturday night, the Starlight Charity Gala. I showed up in an understated, custom-tailored black suit. I decided not to arrive with Chloe to avoid unnecessary gossip, but my presence alone still caused a minor stir. Isn't that Leo Vance? What's he doing here? I thought he hated these things. Keep your voice down. I heard he's different now. He's with the Sullivan girl. Please. He's just living off a woman. What's so impressive about that? I ignored the buzzing whispers and headed straight for the buffet table in the corner. Food was infinitely more appealing than making small talk with these people. As I was carefully selecting a slice of tiramisu, I felt a pair of cold eyes on me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Catherine Pierce. She was wearing a silver mermaid gown that clung to her statuesque figure, her hair swept up to reveal the elegant line of her neck. She looked like a magnificent, mobile ice sculpture, beautiful, but untouchable. A circle of business tycoons surrounded her, but her gaze cut straight through the crowd to land on me. It was a look of scrutiny, confusion, and something else. Something even she probably couldn't name. I raised my plate, which now held both tiramisu and a slice of black forest cake in a mock toast. Then I turned, found an empty corner, and started on my dessert. Ignoring her was the best way to get under her skin. Sure enough, I could feel her icy stare boring into my back for a long, long time. Just then, a smug-looking young man in a white suit approached me, champagne flute in hand. "Ethan Cole, the novel's hero, right on schedule. Mr. Vance, enjoying the cake all by yourself?" Ethan asked, a pleasant smile on his face that didn't quite reach his calculating eyes. I ignored him and focused on my dessert. He didn't seem bothered, taking a seat across from me. "I hear you had a big win with the downtown project, Mr. Vance. You've been hiding your talents," he said, his tone loaded with insinuation. "Just lucky," I mumbled. "You're too modest." Ethan smiled, then changed the subject. "But you know, the business world is a battlefield. You can't rely on luck forever. Take tonight's charity auction, for example. There are fakes mixed in with the real treasures. One wrong move, and you can make a fool of yourself." He was warning me. In the original story, this is where I paid a fortune for a fake, and he was the one who exposed me. He was trying to give me a little preview of his supposed superiority. "Right," I said, finishing my cake and wiping my mouth. "Not interested, Mr. Vance." Ethan's smile started to look a little strained. "I'm not interested in wasting money," I said, standing up. It was time to go, but as I started to leave, a hand grabbed my wrist. I turned. It was Chloe. She'd changed into a pale yellow, strapless gown and looked like a delicate, blossoming jasmine flower. "Leo, where are you going? The auction is starting." She pulled me back to my seat. I looked at her, then at Ethan, who was watching me with a smug, triumphant expression, and then further, at Catherine, whose gaze was like ice. Well, crap. No escaping this. Might as well have some fun. The auction began. The first few lots were jewelry, sparking fierce bidding among the wealthy wives and socialites. I was bored, but Chloe was fascinated, leaning over occasionally to whisper in my ear about which necklace was pretty or which pair of earrings she liked. Her warm breath on my ear was ticklish, sending a pleasant shiver through me. Soon, the host wheeled out a display covered with a red cloth. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next item is one of the highlights of the evening," the auctioneer boomed. "This is a blue and white porcelain vase from the Xuande period of the Ming Dynasty. Experts believe it may be a unique piece brought back by the explorer Zheng He on one of his voyages. The bidding will start at $500,000. He whipped off the cloth to reveal an ornate vase painted with lotus scrolls. I almost laughed out loud. The thing was a hilariously bad fake. The blue was too bright. The porcelain was too porous. It was a modern chemical knockoff, probably made last week. But the crowd didn't know that. 600,000. 700. I'll bid 1 million. Some portly new money type shouted, immediately raising the stakes. I noticed a faint, self-satisfied smirk on Ethan's face. He watched the proceedings with the calm patience of a hunter waiting for his prey to walk into a trap. He knew it was a fake. He was just waiting for some idiot to take the bait so he could swoop in and be the hero. In the original story, that idiot was me. As the bidding climbed to 1.5 million, the room quieted down. Just then, one of Ethan's buddies piped up. "Mr. Vance doesn't seem interested in this national treasure. That's not like him at all." Swish. Every head in the room turned to look at me. Here we go. The same old script. Before I could even speak, Chloe stood up for me. She frowned, glaring at the guy. What business is it of yours whether he's interested or not? The way she said it, so clear and protective, made the entire ballroom fall silent. Everyone stared at us, their faces a mixture of shock and hungry curiosity. The precious princess of the Sullivan family was publicly defending the good-for-nothing Leo Vance. This was juicier than any auction. I saw Catherine's hand tighten around her champagne glass, her knuckles turning white. Ethan's face clouded over. Chloe's outburst had completely derailed his plan. A warmth spread through my chest. I reached out and squeezed Chloe's hand. She gave me a brilliant smile that said, "Don't worry, I've got your back." I smiled back, then slowly rose to my feet, my eyes sweeping across the room. This vase. I paused, letting the silence hang in the air. Everyone held their breath. Ethan's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Do it, bid. Walk right into my trap. I looked straight at him, a slow smile spreading across my face, and said 2 words. It's ugly. Dead silence. Everyone was stunned. They had expected me to make a ridiculously high bid or to dismiss it with arrogance, but no one expected me to just call it ugly. And I added lazily, it's as fake as the smile on Mr. Cole's face. The room exploded. What did you say? The smile vanished from Ethan's face, replaced by a mask of fury. He shot to his feet, his eyes practically spitting fire. Vance, you can't just say things like that. You claim this vase is a fake? Do you have any proof? Proof? I laughed, a picture of innocence. Why do I need proof? I think it's fake, so it's fake. I think it's ugly, so it's ugly. Is there a problem? My utterly shameless response sent a ripple of shock through the crowd. This was more like the arrogant, lawless Leo Vance they all knew and loved to hate. Ethan was trembling with rage. You're just making things up. This is absurd. Yep, I admitted cheerfully. I am. What are you going to do about it? I took a step toward him. At 6'2", I had a good few inches on him, and the sense of physical intimidation was palpable. He instinctively took a step back, his bluster immediately deflating. You? Me what? I clapped him on the shoulder, leaned in close, and whispered, so only he could hear, don't assume everyone else is as stupid as you are. You want to use me to make yourself look good? Try again in your next life. Then I straightened up, didn't give him a second glance, and took Chloe's hand. Let's go. The air in here stinks. Okay. Chloe nodded brightly. Before she left, she turned and made a face at the pale, stunned Ethan. And just like that, under the astonished gaze of hundreds of people, we walked out, leaving behind a mess of drama and a would-be hero on the verge of becoming a laughingstock. Outside, the cool night air felt amazing. Leo, you were so cool back there, Chloe said, linking her arm through mine, her eyes sparkling like stars. When am I not? I teased. You were extra cool tonight. She stood on her tiptoes and planted a quick, soft kiss on my cheek. The touch was gone as quickly as it came. I froze. She froze, too, and then her face erupted in a blush so deep it looked painful. I didn't mean to do that, she stammered, her eyes darting everywhere but at me. Seeing her look so flustered and adorable, something deep inside me softened. I reached up and gently cupped her cheek with my hand. Next time, I said, my thumb stroking her soft skin, aim for here. I tapped my own lips. Chloe's breath hitched. She stared at me, her big eyes wide, my own smiling face reflected in them. The air crackled with unspoken energy, and just as something was about to happen, Leo, a cold voice shattered the moment. Catherine Pierce had followed us out. She stood a few feet away, her face pale as she stared at our intertwined hands and the intimate space between us. Her eyes held the look of a wounded animal, full of pain, defiance, and a sliver of something that looked like a plea. Chloe jumped back like a startled rabbit, dropping my arm and hiding behind me. I frowned, annoyed at Catherine's interruption. Catherine, can I help you? I asked, my tone deliberately distant. Her lips trembled, but she took a deep breath, her gaze shifting from my face to the arm Chloe had just been holding. You really publicly humiliated Ethan and insulted the hosts. For her. Her voice was hoarse. I wouldn't call it insulting them, I said coolly. I just said what I was thinking. But you were never like this before, she said, her voice rising with emotion. You used to just follow the crowd like some brainless sycophant. People change. Is it because of her? She demanded, her eyes locked on Chloe with sharp hostility. I took a step to the side, completely shielding Chloe from her view. That simple, protective gesture seemed to wound Catherine more than anything I could have said. Catherine, I think you're forgetting something, I said, my voice turning cold. We're not engaged anymore. What I do is none of your business. None of your business. Those 4 words shattered her pride like a hammer hitting glass. The color drained from her face, and she swayed on her feet. Right. None of your business, she laughed, a broken, self-mocking sound. Leo Vance, you're really something. She gave me one last, long look, an expression too complicated for me to decipher. Then she turned and stumbled away, no longer the untouchable Ice Queen, but a lost and abandoned stray. Leo. Chloe peeked out from behind me, her voice soft with concern. She seems really upset. That's her problem, I said, taking her hand again. Let's go home. Okay. This time, she didn't pull away. She squeezed my hand tightly, lacing her fingers through mine. On the way back, I got a call from Mark. Mr. Vance, you're a genius, he exclaimed, his voice buzzing with excitement. Right after you left, someone revealed that the vase was a setup by Ethan Cole. He was trying to trick some coal tycoon, but you didn't fall for it, so the other guy backed out. Ethan was stuck, and he had to buy his own fake for $1.5 million. The entire city is laughing at him. I see, I said calmly. And that's not all. Mark continued. The gala's chairman just called me personally to apologize. He said he was grateful you exposed a fraud and saved the event's reputation. He wants to meet with you. Tell him I'm busy. Yes, sir. And one more thing. Catherine Pierce. She just transferred the rights to Pierce Industries' biggest new energy project for the next 3 years to us. She said it was compensation for the broken engagement. I was stunned. Catherine was regretting it? Trying to buy me back with a multi-billion-dollar project? Was she insane? Still, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Accepted, I said. Understood. I hung up and glanced over at Chloe in the passenger seat. She was trying to steal glances at me, and when I caught her, she whipped her head around to look out the window, her ears glowing red. Suddenly, I didn't care about the novel or the plot or who was supposed to be the hero. All I wanted to do was protect the little ray of sunshine sitting next to me and live out my quiet, lazy life. The gala scandal ended in the most spectacular way possible. Ethan Cole's failed scheme made him the butt of every joke in New York's upper crust. And my name, Leo Vance, was suddenly being discussed in a positive, almost mythical light. Some said I had a brilliant eye for antiques. Others whispered about my powerful connections. The most popular theory was that I was the Vance family's secret weapon, that my entire Playboy persona had been a brilliant disguise. It got so absurd that a random post on my social media, "Nice day for a nap," was interpreted as a coded market signal, causing our company's stock to spike. A new meme was born. What Leo isn't doing today. I scrolled through the news on my phone, half amused, half exasperated. I hadn't done anything. I just wanted to sleep in. Leo, you're trending again. Chloe giggled, holding up her phone. She had practically moved in at this point, under the guise of furthering her culinary and distilling education. I couldn't bring myself to argue, not when she looked at me with those big, pleading eyes. It's all nonsense, I said, taking the phone from her and handing her a fresh-baked pastry. But I think they're right, she said through a mouthful of croissant. You are the best. That blind, unconditional faith was a balm to my soul. You just saying that, I said, tapping her on the nose. Just then, the doorbell rang. I checked the security feed. It was Catherine. She wasn't in a power suit today, but a simple, elegant dress. She looked tired, her face pale and without makeup. What is she doing here again? Chloe pouted. I'll handle it, I said, patting her hand. When I opened the door, Catherine was standing there, holding an expensive-looking thermos. She looked at me, her eyes flitting away nervously. I heard you like soup. I made you a classic French bouillabaisse. I stared at her, then at the thermos, completely speechless. This was the woman who probably didn't know how to boil water, and she was attempting complex French cuisine? And how did she even know I liked soup? Oh, right. The original Leo used to bring her homemade soup every day, trying to win her over. She poured every single one down the drain. How the tables have turned. No, thanks, Catherine, I said bluntly. I'm good. Leo, she said, stepping forward, a desperate edge to her voice. Do you have to shut me out like this? I gave you that project. Isn't that enough? You're mixing business with personal matters. There's nothing personal between us anymore. What about my feelings? Can't you see how I feel about you? She nearly shouted, her eyes turning red. I just looked at her, my own heart completely unmoved. You reap what you sow. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. As we stood there in a tense standoff, Chloe appeared from inside. She was holding a steaming bowl of soup and came to my side, linking her arm through mine. Leo, honey, I made that chicken and mushroom soup you like. You should have it while it's hot, she said sweetly. She lifted the spoon to my lips. Open up. I did as I was told and swallowed, the delicious broth. Is it good? She asked, looking up at me, her eyes full of hope. It's perfect, I said, my voice softer than I'd intended. My Chloe's cooking is the best in the world. My Chloe, the possessive, affectionate term, was like a dagger to Catherine's heart. She watched us, her face losing the last of its color. The thermos slipped from her grasp and crashed to the floor, spilling the golden, fragrant soup everywhere. She looked at me, her lips trembling, utterly broken. Then, as if it took all the strength she had left, she turned and ran. Her retreating figure was filled with a desperate, final kind of despair. The moment Catherine was gone, Chloe switched from devoted girlfriend to smug little fox. So how'd I do? She asked, her chin tilted up, practically preening. Perfect score, I said, pinching her cheek. Does that mean I get a reward? She asked, pointing to her own cheek. I leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. That's a down payment, I whispered in her ear. You'll get the rest tonight. Her face instantly turned the color of a tomato. Perv, she squeaked, swatting my arm before scurrying back inside. I watched her go, shaking my head with a smile. Life was getting better every day. But the peace didn't last. A couple of days later, a set of photos exploded online. In them, I was having dinner with a beautiful, unfamiliar woman at a fancy restaurant. The photos were angled to make us look intimate. The headline was pure clickbait. Elio Vance's new mystery woman. Is the fairy tale romance with Chloe Sullivan over? My social media accounts were instantly flooded. You pig, how could you do this to Chloe? I knew it. A leopard can't change its spots. My heart breaks for Chloe. She deserved better. I sighed. The woman in the photo was the head of one of my family's European divisions, in town for a business meeting. The intimacy was just clever camera angles. This was obviously a hit job. My first thought was Ethan Cole. He was probably bitter and trying to get revenge by driving a wedge between me and Chloe. Pathetic. I was about to have Mark take care of it when Chloe called. Leo, did you see the news? Her voice was calm. I did, I said, rubbing my temples. Chloe, listen, that woman is just... I trust you. She cut me off, her tone firm and unwavering. I was stunned. You're not going to ask who she is? Or why we were having dinner? I don't need to, she said, a hint of a smile in her voice. I know you wouldn't do that. Besides, that woman in the pictures is pretty, but she's got nothing on me. You have way better taste than that. Her logic was so bizarre, and her trust so absolute, that my heart felt like it was going to burst. You're ridiculous, I said, my voice thick with affection. Am not, she huffed. Then, her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Leo, just wait. I'm going to find the scumbag who started this rumor and make them pay. You don't have to. I've got it. Click. She hung up on me. I stared at my phone, a mixture of exasperation and adoration welling up inside me. That girl was a little whirlwind. But if she wanted to play, I was happy to watch. I sent a text to Mark. Stand down. Let's see what happens. Meanwhile, Chloe hung up and immediately dialed another number. Hey, Uncle Alex? It's Chloe. I need you to run a trace on someone for me. Her uncle was one of the country's top cybersecurity experts, working for a very quiet government agency. Ethan Cole was so screwed. I thought Chloe would just have her uncle dig up some dirt on Ethan. But her method of revenge was far more public. The next day, from her verified personal social media account, Chloe posted a video. It started with the paparazzi photos that were all over the internet. Then, the video cut to the full security camera footage from the restaurant. It clearly showed me and the executive maintaining a professional distance, deep in what was obviously a serious conversation. In the corner of the frame, a shadowy figure could be seen snapping pictures from sneaky, misleading angles. The video zoomed in on his face. It was Ethan Cole's driver. The truth was out, but she wasn't done. The video cut back to Chloe's beautiful face. She was smiling like the cat that ate the canary. Some people, when they can't win fair and square, resort to pathetic little tricks. Too bad they're not very smart about it. She paused, picked up an apple, and took a loud, crisp bite. So let me make something perfectly clear, she said, holding the apple up. Leo Vance is my man. And if anyone ever tries to spread lies about him, or messes with him in any way, they'll have to deal with me. You hear that, Mr. Ethan Cole. She enunciated his name slowly, her eyes sharp and fierce, a sweet but dangerous smile playing on her lips. The video ended. Within 10 minutes, it went viral. Chloe goes God mode. He's my man. Pray for Ethan. The hashtags took over the top 3 trending spots. The comments section exploded. OMG, I am living for this. Queen behavior. Leo Vance is my man. I think I just died. This is the most romantic thing I've ever seen. Calling him out by name. Savage. I'm officially a Chloe Sullivan stan for life. Am I the only one who feels bad for Ethan? LMAO. Rejected, humiliated, and now publicly executed by the girl he was chasing. Ouch. I scrolled through the comments, laughing so hard my shoulders shook. That girl was a national treasure. Ping. A text from Catherine. 3 words. I am sorry. I raised an eyebrow and didn't reply. A few minutes later, a file arrived from Mark. Mr. Vance, Ethan Cole's company is being investigated for tax evasion, corporate espionage, and a dozen other felonies. It was a welcome gift from Chloe's uncle. I opened the file. It was a mountain of evidence, enough to put Ethan away for a very long time. Turns out, when you peel back the layers on an angel, you find a demon. And I absolutely loved it. Ethan Cole was finished. His company went bankrupt, and he went to prison. The hero of the novel I'd woken up and had been written out of the story before his arc even began. Our fairy tale romance, on the other hand, became the stuff of legend. No one dared call me a kept man anymore. No one questioned my abilities. After all, any man who could inspire that kind of loyalty from Chloe Sullivan had to be something special. My plan to do nothing had succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. I did nothing, and everyone thought I was a genius. My hyper-competitive team, led by Mark, took my perceived brilliance as a mandate to conquer the world, doubling the size of our company. Mark even gave a presentation about the Vance philosophy of inaction, talking about achieving greatness through stillness, which got all the senior execs so fired up you'd think he was a televangelist. I was so tired. Can't a man just be a talentless degenerate in peace? What are you thinking about? Chloe wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her cheek on my back. We were lounging by the rooftop pool, sipping on my home-brewed iced tea. My golden retriever was napping peacefully next to her fluffy ragdoll cat on the lawn. Just life, I said, rolling over to pull her into my arms. What's there to think about? She murmured, snuggling against my chest. Isn't life just about wasting time with you? She looked up at me, the sun catching in her eyelashes. Her eyes reflected the blue sky, the white clouds, and my face. Wasting time is the most romantic thing in the world. I leaned down and kissed her. It started soft and slow, but the familiar, intoxicating scent of her skin pulled me deeper. Her response was shy but eager, a sweet, untamed passion. The sun was warm, the breeze was gentle. The city skyline stretched out below us, and the person I loved was in my arms. I suddenly realized how ridiculous my past life had been, killing myself for a paycheck. Everyone is just scrambling for a little security, a little comfort. They didn't know that all I ever wanted was to lie on a mountain of gold and soak up the sun. And now I had my mountain, and I had my son. With the blessing of both our families, things moved quickly. Our engagement party was a small, intimate affair with only our closest friends and relatives. As I watched Chloe walk toward me in a simple white dress, looking more beautiful than ever, a profound sense of peace washed over me. I felt complete. When I slid the ring on her finger, she started to cry. Tears of pure joy. Leo, she whispered, the first time she'd ever used my full name. I'm so happy. Me too, Chloe, I said, wiping away her tears. And I promise, I'll spend the rest of my life making you even happier. Across the room, I saw Catherine. She was in a black dress, standing alone in a corner, looking terribly lonely. She was thinner, and the icy mask she always wore was gone, replaced by a quiet emptiness. She just watched us, not with anger or regret, but with the detached gaze of a stranger watching a movie. When our eyes met, she gave me a sad, brittle smile, then turned and slipped out of the room. I turned my attention back to the girl in my arms. What were you looking at? Chloe asked. Nothing, I whispered in her ear. Just my whole world. Her face, predictably, turned bright red. Our wedding night was everything a new beginning should be. The moon was high and bright, the stars like scattered diamonds. I carried my new wife into our bedroom. She was nervous, her body trembling slightly in my arms. I laid her gently on the bed and kissed away her shyness. "Ready?" I asked. She blushed and nodded, then shook her head. "I'm scared." "Don't be," I said, taking her hand and lacing my fingers through hers. "I'm right here." The moonlight spilled through the window, bathing the room in a soft, ethereal glow. The night was both infinitely long and incredibly short. Long enough to explore every inch of our love for each other, and short enough that in what felt like a blink, the sun was rising. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and deeply content. I went downstairs to make my exhausted wife breakfast in bed. On the living room rug, my golden retriever and her ragdoll cat were curled up together, fast asleep. I smiled. Even they had found their happily ever after. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the room with a warm, peaceful light. Looking at this scene, at this life, I knew with absolute certainty this was exactly where I was supposed to be. End.